A couple weeks ago, I finally broke down and bought one of those Anbernic RG35XX emulator doodads, the ones you see plastered all over the TikTok shop, and no, I did not buy mine from one of those peddlers. I got mine from Keep Retro, who is not sponsoring this video, but I am open to negotiations. If y'all want to hit me up, I'm free most of the time, and my morals are questionably loose, so just let me know. It took like 2 weeks to get here, and about 5 days after it arrived, my PC shit the bed harder than me after a midnight Taco Bell run. I'm talking blue screened, not booting, covered in feces, down for the count. It turned out to just be a bad stick of RAM, but well, you know, how could I have known? With having zero access to my computer to play games or edit videos, I decided to throw it back to something that I've been wanting to do for many years, but just never really found the time to do. I wanted to revisit a staple of my childhood, the first generation original Pokemon games, Red and Blue versions. Now, I did sort of clickbait you with this title, and for that, I am very sorry. While I was truthful in saying that I've never played Red and Blue specifically, I played the pepperoni and piss out of Leaf Green and quite a bit of Yellow as a child, but I was like 4, so I had no idea what was going on. While those games do hold a very special place in my heart, it felt really weird to say that I've never actually played the original versions, and in doing some preliminary research for this video, I found out that actually quite a lot had changed from Blue to Yellow, and obviously even more from Blue to Leaf Green. Aside from making the jump to having sprites of color and ones that better represent Sigamori's original vision, Yellow version also had numerous changes made to the Pokedex and gave you Pikachu as your starter as opposed to the originals giving you Squirtle, Charmander, or Bulbasaur. So mainly just to say that I've done it, I wanted to go back and see if Pokemon Blue version is as good as everyone remembers it being. I also wanted this experience to be as authentic as possible, so being able to take my RG35X, the fucking Game Boy, okay? You know what it is. So being able to take my Game Boy on the go was a big part of that. Sadly, that means I was not able to record any of my original footage, but I did have a crude recreation on my emulator on my PC, so that'll just have to do. Starting out in good old Pallet Town, I met up with Professor Oak, and seeing as I'm playing Blue version, and he's also just the best one, decided to choose Squirtle as my starter. I named him Bernard, which will sound a lot better once he evolves into Blastoise, then proceeded to kick the ass of my rival, Chaz. Growing up, I never really named any of my Pokemon, so for this playthrough, I decided to give each and every one a nickname, and what a colossal fucking mistake that was. I knew this going in, but did not realize what a pain it would become, but the PC box system in the first 3 games is fucking atrocious, to say the least. Not only does it not show you the Pokemon itself, but once you click into the summary to find out who the fuck Gilbert is, you cannot just scroll to the next one in line. And to make it even less user-friendly, once you click out of the summary, it kicks you back to the first menu, all the way back to the top of the list. This, coupled with the fact that I accidentally named my Machop and Cubone Martin, really just made the whole process that much more of a pain in the ass, and I quickly stopped doing it after defeating Erica. Also, the manually changing box number thing, who the fuck thought that was a good idea? I may just be sounding like a whiny little bitch, and I'm not really even disputing that. I just don't think that the importance of the quality of life improvements that were made in the later games can be understated compared to what we had originally. The automatic box switching when one gets full, the visible sprites, truly some groundbreaking shit. One of the first things I noticed after leaving Pallet Town was just how different the games feel without color. I didn't really think that the games being in black and white would make that much of a difference, but honestly, it really does add a whole other layer of charm to the Pokemon sprites, and also just kind of makes each town feel a little more distinct from one another. Speaking of sprites, dog. What is that? Choosing Squirtle as my starter made Brock an absolute joke of a gym battle and allowed me to pretty much beeline it straight to Cerulean City to challenge Misty, who got smoked on by my Richard the Pikachu that I caught back in Viridian Forest. I also decided to live out my childhood dream of catching Mew without using a cheat code, which I did before progressing up to the Sea Cottage to meet Bill. Making my way to Lieutenant Surge in Vermilion City was pretty easy going, and using Graveler to fuck on all his electric rats was nothing short of a cakewalk. Honestly, I was breezing through the game right now and kind of in like disbelief with how easy it was. I remember every single gym being a total pain in my 5-year-old ass and just struggling through barely with like 2 Pokemon to spare. Maybe it's the fact that I am a grown-ass man now, or maybe it's Maybelline, but I was expecting this game to be a goddamn slogfest the whole way through. After Surge, it was time to backtrack to Pewter City to use my newfound HM cut to progress through the rock tunnel to Lavender Town. From Lavender Town, it is a straight shot west to Celadon City to face the 4th gym leader, Erica. This was the first time that I actually had to slow down and train up my Pokemon, being that at this point my party consisted of a water, ground, rock and ground, psychic, electric, and flying type Pokemon. Thankfully, Frankie the Fearer was able to hard carry us through this fight, giving us the Rainbow Badge and putting us on our way to Saffron City. As a child playing Yellow version, I never really experimented much with anyone outside of like the first 5 Pokemon you catch. And remember my party consisting of like Pikachu, Pidgeot, Raticate, Butterfree, maybe Gyarados for Surf, and like Zapdos, maybe? Okay, no, Kadabra. I had a Kadabra most of the time, I think. Basically just the first handful of Pokemon you catch, and I would just run with them the whole way through and just way over level them to beat every gym. So with this playthrough, I wanted to experiment a little and use some types and Pokemon that I've always liked, but just never decided to have in my party. Up to this point, my mainstays were Bernard the Wartortle, of course, Frankie the Fearow, Richard the Pikachu, Caleb the Kadabra, Cassandra the Sandslash, and a rotating 6 slot that would just be kind of whatever I needed at the time. Paris the Paris if I needed an HM slave, Gustavo the Graveler for some beefy defense, and eventually Nina the Vulpix, who I think got replaced by the nicknameless Magmar after Koga, who then also got replaced by Dratini towards the end. I cleared out the Rocket Game Corner and Silphco buildings to open up the gym in Saffron City, then used Cassandra to plow through the entire Psychic gym. I was pretty scared to fight Sabrina at the end, seeing as Psychic is busted as hell in the Gen 1 games, and I was still a couple levels lower than her Alakazam, but to my surprise, I was able to dig my way to victory. Literally. I do not remember Dig being as good as it was in the Generation 1 games, but that move fucking rocked, and I just like one-shot all of her Pokemon. After Sabrina, I made my way down the bike path on Route 16 to Fuchsia City, cruised around the Safari Zone, and eventually made my way to the gym to fight Koga. I did always like that you had the choice to fight Sabrina or Koga out of order since both of their aces are level 43, but decided to stick to the original order since, I mean, there's not really any reason not to. Koga's team is entirely poison type, so Caleb was able to one-shot literally all of them with Psychic, scoring us the Soul Badge and the ability to surf on down to Cinnabar Island. I was loosely following the player's guide for this playthrough and thought it was weird that they say to go ahead and catch Zapdos and Articuno before making it to Cinnabar Island, so I went ahead and did that before entering the Pokemon Mansion. Grabbing the secret key from within the mansion, I breezed straight through the Cinnabar gym with Bernard Surf, which once again just pretty much one-shot everyone inside. Again, I was kind of in like genuine disbelief with how easy the game had been so far, and I only have one fucking gym left. The required side areas like the Pokemon Tower or the Game Corner, I feel like give you just enough experience to get your party up to a usable level to fight the gym, and if you just train the right type, you can mow down literally every gym with just that one Pokemon. Flying back to Viridian City, we only have one gym leader left to fight, that being the Team Rocket boss, Giovanni. His party consists of Rhyhorn, Dugtrio, and Rhydon, all of which are weak to water, i.e. Bernard, and a Nidoking and Nidoqueen who are extremely weak to Psychic, which we also have covered, so once again, this one was really easy. Okay, seriously, what was I doing as a child? Why was this shit so hard? After defeating Giovanni, he gives us the Earth Badge, which is the last required item to progress through the gates to Victory Road, on our way to the game's final challenge, the Pokemon League. Inside Victory Road, I went ahead and snagged Moltres for no real reason, other than just to have him, because he never saw the light of day again. Then proceeded up to the Indigo Plateau. At this point, my party was still a little underleveled to be fighting the Elite Four, so for the second time in this entire playthrough, I decided to stop and train a bit to get everyone up to level 60. Thinking back to my first time playing some of the older Pokemon games, I remember them being a lot more stop and go, like there was a lot more grinding in between gyms. Whether I'm just misremembering them or I just played them like absolute shit as a child, I was having a blast cruising through Blue with very little resistance. Once I got everyone to level 60, I headed inside the Pokemon League to face the first member of the Elite Four, Lorelei. She has mainly ice and water type Pokemon, which Richard was able to make quick work of with Thunder, when it hit, and the only non-water type Pokemon she has is Jinx, which Cassandra was able to take out with a few Rock Slides. Bruno's up next with primarily fighting type Pokemon, and 2 Onix for some reason. So between Bernard and Caleb, he really did not stand a chance the second the fight started. Moving on to Agatha, what a horrible and fitting name for this old dried up bitch. You might think we're in trouble since she has not 1, but 2 Gengars and a Haunter, whose Generation 1 ghost typing makes them only weak to other ghosts. But thankfully for whatever reason, they are also poison type, which makes them weak to Psychic and ground? Has that always been that way? Last but not least is the Dragon Tamer Lance, whose powerhouse team consists of Gyarados, Aerodactyl, 2 Dragonairs, and a Dragonite, all of which are turbo weak to ice other than Gyarados, whose dual typing with water and flying makes him exceptionally weak to electric moves. After defeating the Elite Four, we move on to face our rival Chaz, who got to fulfill his dream of being champion for all of about 7 minutes, before we come in and stomp a proverbial mudhole in his ass. Because I chose Squirtle to start, Chaz's team now consists of Alakazam, Pidgeot, Rhydon, Gyarados, Arcanine, and Venusaur, all of which we have covered, save for Alakazam, who I ended up just having to wail on for a minute, but it got the job done. And with Chaz's ass wiped clean, we're pretty much done, man. Only one challenge remains, buried deep in the aptly named Unknown Dungeon. I caught Mewtwo. That's pretty much it. So, in conclusion, are these games worth playing in 2025? Yes, absolutely. If you haven't played them before, or at the very least in a very long time, they are well worth another visit in my humble opinion. There's a reason that Pokemon is still the #1 media franchise in the world, and going back to see where it all started is kinda interesting. That being said, do I see any real reason to play Red and Blue over Fire Red and Leaf Green? Not really. While I do love the simplistic nature of the originals and the charm of the older sprites, the little quality of life improvements that they made in the remakes, in my opinion, set it a whole league above the older ones. The box system and inventory management shit are absolute garbage in Red and Blue, not to mention psychic types being busted as fuck before the special split, all of which were remedied with Fire Red and Leaf Green. Graphically, obviously the remakes are better looking and overall more detailed, but I do really love the design of the older games, and it feels so fucking cozy to hear the town and route themes that have been permanently etched into the wrinkles of my brain come through that little Game Boy speaker 29 years later. So yeah, that's about all I got. I want to say thank you again for watching my video and spending your evening with me. I really do appreciate that a lot, and I hope to see you around in a future video, maybe, if you didn't hate this one. As always, I've been Aqua Sloth, you've been great, and I'll see you later.